Welcome back, science students. Today we are going to be talking about cells. And most discussions of cells start with the cell theory. And there are 3 points to the cell theory that you need to know. The first is that all living organisms are made up of cells. Now what that means is that regardless of what you are, as long as you are alive, you are made up of cells. Now you might be made up of a single cell, something small like an amoeba. Or you might be like a squirrel or a rabbit made up of lots of cells, or even you, because you are made up of cells. And estimates are that you are made up of trillions of cells. That's a lot of cells. The second point is that the cell is the basic unit of life. Okay? So the basic unit of structure, function, and organization of life. Now what that means is that the cell is the smallest thing that's capable of life. The activities that we assume for something that is alive that will be able to be carried out. For example, production of energy, reproduction, growth. These are the things that we're talking about. And nothing smaller than the cell is capable of doing those things. Therefore, the cell is sort of the building block of all life. The third point in the cell theory is that all cells come from pre-existing cells. Now, what that means is that in order for there to be new cells, they've got to come from cells that already exist. And that happens through a mother cell producing daughter cells. And this allows for the transfer of genetic information onto the next generation. In the past, scientists sort of noticed that, hey, we've got a cheeseburger sitting out on a counter, and if you leave it there for a couple of days, you're going to get maggots growing all over it. It was really gross and disgusting and stuff like that. And they didn't know how they got there. They just assumed that that life just spontaneously generated, just somehow came from the cheeseburger. And then cheeseburger is an amazing thing, but we now know that it cannot just produce life. Okay? All cells must come from pre-existing cells. So those are the 3 points of the cell theory that you need to know. All right, now cells were first discovered by Robert Hooke back in 1665 using a very primitive microscope. Now, microscope technology has improved a lot since then. We have much more powerful microscopes than the light microscope we have here. However, this one's still powerful enough that we can see cells. Now, just like your body that's made up of different organs, the cell's made up of different parts that help it to survive. Let's take a look at the different parts under the microscope and see if we can make sense of these. Alright, the first thing that we're going to take note of here is the nucleus. The nucleus is kind of in the middle here, and it's sort of our purpley bluey structure. What the nucleus does for the cell is it's sort of the control center of the brain of the cell, and it directs the activities of the cell, sort of telling it what needs to be produced, where do things need to be sent. It's sort of all organized by the nucleus. It also houses the genetic information. The next structure we're going to look at here is the cell membrane, sometimes called the plasma membrane. And the cell membrane or the plasma membrane surrounds the entire cell. Now, it's a semi-permeable structure, which means that certain things can pass through it and other things can't. You can think of the cell membrane as the gatekeeper of the cell. It's going to control what gets in and what gets out. So it's a very important structure. It really separates the cell from the outside environment. Alright, the next organelle we're going to look at is the endoplasmic reticulum. Really just a fancy name for a series of tunnels or tubes that kind of run throughout the cell that allow chemicals or other molecules to be transported from different parts. So there are 2 types of endoplasmic reticulum. There are the smooth and there's the rough. The rough endoplasmic reticulum is the ones that have the dots here in our diagram, and those dots are what we call ribosomes. Ribosomes are a very important structure within the cell. These ribosomes are responsible for the production of proteins, and proteins are the building blocks of the things that are going to make up the cell and other organelles, and very important structures for the body, as we'll find out later on. Alright, the next organelle we're going to look at is the mitochondria. Here we can see that there are 5 mitochondria here within our cell. Now there's multiples within them because they serve a very important function. The mitochondria is responsible for producing energy for the cell and for the body if you are a multicellular organism. Now what's going on inside the mitochondria is cellular respiration, and what that means is this is where sugar is being broken down to release its energy. So all that food you eat, we need to get those molecules, they get taken to the mitochondria and they're broken down and energy is released so you can take care of all your other bodily functions. Very important organelle, the mitochondria.
All right, the next part of the cell that we're going to talk about is the lysosomes. And the lysosomes here in our diagram are represented by the red dots. There are several lysosomes here, and then once again, they carry out a pretty important function. You can think of the lysosome as sort of the stomach of the cell, or a recycling plant, because what they do is they'll break down and digest molecules here into smaller pieces, or they'll recycle parts of the cell that are worn out, no longer needed, and get rid of waste. And so try to break it down to the base molecules that maybe could be used in other places. That's the function of the lysosome. Next, we're going to look at a different organelle. This is called the Golgi body, or the Golgi apparatus. Now, what the Golgi body will do, and this is sort of represented by the pink sections here that we're pointing at. What the Golgi body does is it will package up proteins that are made by the cell, sort of package them up and get them ready for to be sent to other parts of the cell or other parts of the body where they're needed. So this cell might be producing certain types of proteins that are needed other places in the body. The Golgi body kind of packages them up and gets them ready to be sent there. Next up, we're going to look at another organelle that sometimes people will mistake for the nucleus. Here it's represented sort of as a pinky reddish sort of circle inside the nucleus, and this is what we call the nucleolus. The nucleolus is responsible for producing ribosomes, which again are the things that produce protein, so very important for the cell. The nucleolus also will produce RNA, which is the stuff that ribosomes are made of. So again, this is not the nucleus, this is the nucleolus. Sounds the same, different structure, located in kind of the same spot, so because the nucleolus is within the nucleus. Don't get them confused. The green structures here are known as centrioles, and centrioles are responsible for helping out when the cell divides through the process of mitosis that we'll be looking at in a couple days. So right now, all you need to know is that the centrioles are responsible for helping out in cell division, and we'll see how that happens a little bit more detail in a couple days. Okay, next up we're going to look at this pink stuff that runs all the way around all the other organelles. This is what we call cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is a jelly-like substance that helps to give the cell its shape, it separates things, it's a medium for chemical reactions to take place in, and overall just kind of fills up the cell. Alright, so that's the cytoplasm.